I'm Mark Dawson from the Self-Publishing Show, and this is Self-Publishing Spotlight, where we shine a light on the indie authors who are changing the world of publishing, one book at a time.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Spotlight. We meet indie authors at all stages of their careers and ask them a series of 5 questions. 5 questions about their process, their mistakes and their successes. 5 answers that will help you level up your own author career. My name's Tom Ashford and I'm part of the Self-Publishing Formula. Don't forget that you can get your self-publishing resource kit at selfpublishingformula.com/starter kit. This week's guest is Jacqui Broderick. She's written 7 books in a load of genres and she lives in the Republic of Ireland. Welcome, Jacqui.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
That's all right. Do we want to start by talking about the 7 books and all the different sort of genres that you've written in and plans for the future?
Okay, perfect. I started off originally as a magazine editor, and one of the people that I wrote an article about was a young jockey from Ireland who'd been very badly injured in a racing accident. And I met him through the magazine and did an article on him. And then I wanted to tell his story. In Ireland, there'd been a huge fundraising campaign because at the time when he had the accident, there was nothing in place for injured jockeys. And there'd been a huge fundraising campaign which had kind of really brought Ireland together. And so I wanted to tell his story and the story of the campaign. So I approached a publisher and they were interested in what I was doing. And so that was published. So that was my first book. Following on from that, the publishing company wanted to look at some fiction ideas that I'd got. And so I wrote a heap of book ideas, and then at that stage the man that owned the publishing company was going to retire, and so that was all shelved. But then I'd all these ideas, and so I picked one and approached another Irish publishing company with the idea, and they liked that, asked me to write it. I wrote it. This was it was contemporary women's fiction set in Ireland around the horse racing world. And so I wrote that. Then they wanted it rewriting. And eventually then, this would have been in about 2000, I got a letter, because this was kind of in the days before email. I got a letter asking me to go up to Dublin, and that they were not promising anything, but come and have a chat with us. So I went up to Dublin, and in that meeting, they gave me a 3-book contract, which was absolutely amazing. It was all that I'd ever hoped for. You know, from being a child, I'd always wanted to be a writer. And I really felt like that was it. I was a writer. And so I wrote the 3 books. And then the same as I think happened to a lot of authors around that time, 2007, with the kind of onset of ebooks and publishing just seemed to go mad, and they didn't want any more books from me.
Right. And
so and I was lucky enough that at that stage that I was offered a job as a magazine editor for a horse magazine here in Ireland. So I did that for a number of years, but I still carried on writing, and I published a children's pony story. And then when the magazine folded up, and I also wrote kind of ghost wrote a couple of books for people. And then when the magazine folded up, I knew really that my big love, even though I loved the magazine, it became just a routine. You planned it, you wrote the articles, it came out, you planned it, and it was the cycle. And I missed the creativity of my own books. And so I went back to writing, and had at that stage as well got the rights back to my 3 books. So I republished those myself as ebooks and through Amazon. it just went on from there. I a couple of years ago did a master's degree, and that kind of gave me a real boost of confidence that I don't know, I almost felt like embarrassed to say that I was a writer. It didn't feel like it was real, like I could kind of own that. Right. And through the course, I saw a lot of people who would have had little short stories published, and I'm not taking away from that, but they had such egos about what they'd done, whereas they'd done nothing really in comparison to what I'd done. And it really gave me a kick to kind of think, you know, I actually am a writer. Would you ever just stand up and admit what you are and kind of own what you do? And so I did. So it gave me a real kind of sense of who I was, and it's really pushed me on to doing more writing. And when I started the course, I had a kind of half-baked idea for a book, and we had every week to submit a piece of writing, and I just started to write the book, and that came out at the end of January. Had it, finished it last year, edited it, and then it came out in January. And since then, I have written the sequel to it. And over the last few years, I've written a lot of books and then done nothing with them for one reason or another. So this year, the plan is to rewrite and edit, or work with an editor and get all of those out this year.
Awesome. Well, the first question is normally, why do you write? And I feel like you've covered that quite nicely there. But so a lot of that was traditionally published, and I presume going forward you're looking for more of an indie route.
Yeah, definitely. I love the independence of it. When I was published traditionally, I remember coming out of that meeting and thinking, I was like Wilbur Smith. I thought I'd made it. I thought that was going to be it now. This was my income, my whole life. And what I didn't realise, kind of quite naively, about the business was that you earn absolutely nothing from it. Absolutely nothing. And you are very much just a little cog in a very big wheel. And the publishers just take over your book. They make it how they want it. They put whatever covers they want on them, and you just have no control. And I ended up with 3 books that were all written. They were all kind of like racy books, like Jilly Cooper's Riders. They were that type of thing, and they ended up with these prissy covers with girls sitting on beds, I mean, not sort of seductive girls, but just like these random girls sitting on beds, and they were of no relevance to what the genre was or what the story was. And so when I got the control of them, it was just such a turnaround of everything, that I can work with a designer and get the cover that I want. And I mean, I'm very conscious of making the books as professional as they would be if they were traditionally published. I work with an editor. I have a couple of really good editors, and I enjoy that process, the process of them, the editor, being able to see things in the book that you don't see yourself. And, like I say, I'm very conscious of the fact that it's a product that I'm making. I'm not precious about it, about my work. It's just a book, but it's got to be as good as it can be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, question number 2 is, how do you write? So are you more of a plotter, or do you just sort of pants it and see where the story takes you?
No, I'm a very definite plotter. Sorry, I'm not a pantser. I'm a plotter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will spend weeks plotting. And I will have, before I start to write, I will have a very, very detailed breakdown of how the book's going to go. It's broken down chapter to chapter. And then I tend to write in sort of 500 word chunks. And 500 words mean I get my 500 words down, then I can go and put a load of washing in, or I can go make a cup of tea or something, another 500 words, and I can get some other reward. And so I break down the chapters into chunks of 500. Each chapter is about 2,500 words. And so I break each chapter then down into 4 or 5 500 word chunks.
Nice. How long are your books generally?
They used to be a lot longer than they are. They used to be like 120,000 words, but now the last few that I've written I'm going down to 80,000.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I was talking to Cecilia Mecca about word counts and things, because she was saying that she used to write 90,000 words for like romance novels.
Yeah.
And then she wrote a couple that was 60,000 and nobody responded negatively to it. They just were like, that was a good story. So she's like, why would I write 2 books instead of 3?
Yeah. And the last 2, there's 2 children's books that are coming out. Well, one's just been released on Amazon and the other one should come out this week. And they're both 30,000. Right. And I wrote both of those. I wrote a chapter a month of each last year, kind of while I was writing other stuff. And so as I say, they're going to be 30,000.
Nice. Okay, and what sort of software do you use to write your stories?
Just Word.
Yeah.
Just Word. It suits me fine. I'm used to it. My focus is writing, and I find that anything else takes, like, I haven't got time to play with something else. I just want to get my words down.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And I think because I've plotted so carefully as well, I know, and I do very detailed backstories, so it's all there anyway. And I think listening to people who use other things, it seems that just does what I've got down on a bit of paper anyway.
Yeah, I mean, things haven't drastically changed from the typewriter, really.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
All right, well, question number 3 is, are you a full-time author? If you are, how did you get there? And if you aren't, what steps are you taking to make it happen?
I am a full-time author, yes.
Nice.
Yes, I am. I'm very proud to be.
When did that sort of happen?
Slowly over the last few years. Yeah, definitely. I mean, at one time I was a magazine editor, and I used to write in my spare time, when I wasn't writing magazine articles. When I was first published, I was working as a trail guide. So I used to bring groups of people horse riding through Ireland. And then kind of, any spare minutes that I got, I would be writing plots or, editing. And so I've always just sort of fitted it in around everything else. But the last few years now, especially since I've been published independently, and it's just started to slowly increase. And so now that's my living.
Nice. Okay, question number 4 is, what mistakes do you think you've made and what have you got right?
What mistakes have I made? I think not trusting myself, that, sort of, I think not showing up that I was a writer. Sounds a bit like a hippie kind of thing to say, but I would be embarrassed, somebody would say, "Oh, I've written a book or something," and I'd say, "Oh yeah, they're just chick lit," and it's like I've sat down and spent a year writing that, and people write to me and say how much they've enjoyed it, and I'm just passing it off as something irrelevant. So I think that was the mistake I made, not to admit to who I was and not to be proud of what I was doing.
Yeah.
I also wish that I had gone more into independently publishing before.
Yeah.
But equally, I think sometimes life just, I did a lot of courses and a lot of, that all have brought me to where I am. So I think I'm where I'm meant to be. I'm happy with that.
Fair enough. Okay, well, question number 5 is, what's your final piece of advice for authors starting out in indie publishing?
Just put your bottom in the seat and just write. Just write and keep writing, and don't show up every day, even if it's just for a few minutes, and just do something. And don't overthink it. Don't kind of keep rewriting and thinking, oh, it's got to be this, that, or the other. Just keep writing. And I think it's almost like making a cake when you write a book. You just throw it all in there, and it's not until you've actually written the book that the proper work starts. It's very, very important to make sure that you work with an editor. But equally, it's very important that you find an editor who is good and who will do what your book needs. And you can't edit your book yourself. You can't see all the failings in it. It's like your children. You don't see their faults, and a book is the same as that.
Yeah, that's good advice. Okay, and that's your 5 questions. Thank you very much for coming on the show. That's it for this week's Self-Publishing Spotlight. Don't forget that you can get your free self-publishing resource kit at selfpublishingformula.com/starter kit. And if you want to appear as a guest on this show, send us brief details about yourself and your writing at selfpublishingformula.com/spotlight-guest. I'm Tom Ashford, and I'll see you again next week.